What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. It's time to once again pick on Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Now, I understand that I've called him a closet liberal. I've always said that he doesn't really show much of a conservative side to him. But what we're seeing right now as Tariff Day hits Canada is that Doug Ford has pushed back, as we all knew he was going to when it comes to his so-called resolution to Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, I'm going to leave tariffs out of it because what Doug Ford has done now is essentially constituted an act of war from a legal standpoint based on his reaction to these tariffs. And it could push Canada into a worse position. I keep saying that politicians need to start talking about how do we bring an end to this rather than how do we push back? How do we make it worse? How do we keep kicking a hornet's nest? Well, I don't agree with a lot of the rhetoric that travels both north and south of the border. I think that at some point we have to have somebody who's willing to say, look, we got to find a way to work together here. We can't keep pushing each other back and forth. Let's take a look at what old Dougie Boy's suggesting here, because a little bit more to this subject than I think is being reported on, or at least what I think could be the potential reason for a lot of this. I've always said, follow the money. We're going to do that in this video, but let's take a look at what Doug Ford has to say here. Premier Ford is asking retailers to put a Canadian flag on prices in stores before legislating it as a requirement. Ford says the U.S. will feel the pain of Ontario consumers by buying less American goods. Let's take a listen.
I've been asking kindly for all the retailers, and by the way, this is a massive impact, folks. Over all of Canada, we purchase $800 billion with a B, $800 billion worth of goods from retailers. A lot comes in from the U.S. I love the software. People are just stepping up. I love going down the aisle of the shopping store or grocery store, and people are picking up to look at the back of the label. They've come up with software to scan it. A lot of people can't scan it. I'm asking politely until I implement it. Every retail store, when you go look at the shelf talker that has the price, we need to see a Canadian flag on that price.
You know, it's funny that he mentions that, and I'm sorry to cut him off, but I wanted to highlight this because do you guys remember during the pandemic, Doug Ford, again, when I say follow the money, Doug Ford made a lot of money with 6 feet apart, stickers and labels, signage for different companies. A lot of money was made on the part of Doug Ford. Now, what am I talking about? Well, if you understand Doug Ford's history. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is why he's talking about this. I know that a lot of grocers have in-house printing now and things like that, that they can do these things on their own. But it's funny when you follow the chain and realize that Deco Labels and Flexible Packaging, is owned and started through Doug Ford Sr. I'm just going to read the About Us section, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Deco Label started in 1962 from a humble beginning. One man and his dream, Doug Ford Sr., today is still a family-run business and ranks as the premier label and flexible converting company in North America. From our beginning, Deco Labels has held a strong belief that state-of-the-art equipment, effective communication, and commitment to excel are key ingredients for converting labels and flexible packaging. Now, of course, you see Doug Ford Sr. standing there in the picture, but if you click on the main page for Deco Labels, celebrating their 60th anniversary currently, as you go down the page, we are the preferred printer for Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, Inc., which is also part of Safeway. Isn't it funny how Dougie Boy is always talking about labels, the buy Canadian labels in stores. Now he wants Canada flag labels printed. I mean, again, I'm not saying that there's any deals in place yet or that I've found any deals in place, but when this is plastered on their page that they're the preferred printer for these stores, does it not seem like this is all part of the plan to get this guy's wealth boosted a little bit? Get some business over to his company? I mean, when you think about the amount of grocery stores in the country that if they were to adopt this policy, especially in Ontario, The Ontario end of it would probably see deco labels, just as it did during the pandemic, helping out in those operations if they weren't doing it in-house. Again, I'm not suggesting that it's been done, just a little bit of little coincidence, a little coincidental behavior falling into the lines. Let's listen to the rest of what he has to say. And then we're going to get into his declaration of war.
A lot of people can't pick it up and scan it. So please work with us, or we're going to legislate it and start onshoring goods from you're bringing around the world. There's nothing we can't build here in Ontario. Absolutely nothing.
So one thing there, again, just to touch on that final point, he made the very clear statement there. You need to get on board or we're going to legislate it. Again, I'm willing to bet awarding contracts to his own business. Isn't this the same issue that we had with Randy Boissonneau? Conflicts of interest? Like, the guy is going to be giving out contracts, possibly, and again, he hasn't done it yet, but possibly to his own company as he did during the pandemic. Pure corruption.
So I'm asking for their cooperation to do that. And that's billions. We buy over 300 billion right here in Ontario. So we're going to focus on that. I've never seen patriotism like this in my entire life, running wild across the country. And we're just going to keep ramping it up over and over again. So our 30 billions, it doesn't include the municipalities. And I know all 444 municipalities are on board, but we're going to make sure we legislate it that you're buying Ontario first, Canada second. And I get it. There's some products you aren't able to get. I get it.
You're going to buy Ontario first, Canada second. I get he's the Premier of Ontario. But listen to those words again, given his family's history, given why he would push for this. Again, just like the pandemic, it's not about what they're saying the goal is, it's about their personal goals. At least that's how I feel.
But I'll tell you one thing, we start shifting it, they're going to feel the pain. And they want to go after our families, take food off our tables, try to close down our companies. I'll tell you, we're going to fight like I've never fought before to protect Canada, to protect the people of Ontario and their businesses and their communities and their jobs.
So old Dougie Boy not only has threatened with, labels and pulling products off his shelves and, making his company more wealthier, he's also talked about shutting off the electricity that goes to the United States through Ontario. Now, while some people I know that have said that's not going to cause a huge disruption for Americans, the act of shutting off electricity is considered an act of war. When you look here, it says, yes, cutting off power to another country can be considered an act of war, particularly if it is done intentionally and significantly impacts civilian populations, as it is seen as a violation of international humanitarian laws, which aims to protect civilians during armed conflict. This is especially true if the power cut is part of a larger military strategy to inflict harm on the enemy population. Key points to consider: deliberately cutting off electricity to a civilian population can lead to serious consequences like lack of access to essential services like healthcare, clean water, and communication, which could be considered a war crime if done without justification. What is Doug doing? Like, this is where I've tried to talk about Trump derangement syndrome. I've talked about how anytime you see polls changing, which again, the polls are BS, but this all has to do with Donald Trump. People are obsessed with their hatred for Donald Trump, that it is possibly going to elect another liberal government, that it is possibly going to hinder our federal election, that it's what got Doug Ford his next mandate. He just won an outcry during his next election because he used Donald Trump as a tool. And I talked about that to great extent before that provincial election went through. This is going to be about Trump. Whatever Doug wants to do at this point, whatever any politician wants to do at this point, all they have to tell the people, especially in Ontario, Southern Ontario, Toronto, mostly, we're going after Trump, and they get whatever they want. They get the support, they get the backing. This is no different than the pandemic. It's just poisoning people's minds to benefit those in power, to the elitists. Luckily, we have a hot mic moment from Doug Ford of what was really said. I'm going to cover that here, and then we'll discuss.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are ready, sir, to go to war, to go to a trade war with the United States, with the Trump administration.
Listen, buddy, I wake up every day, I go down to my local Tim Hortons. By the way, we're going to be shutting down all the Timmies across the border there. So, sir, if you're in Michigan there and you like getting your bacon egger, or your double, you know, I had a bacon egger today, and for Christ's sake, I thought, Americans, they don't know what they're doing, but buddy, listen to me. My brother, he used to be the mayor of Toronto before the Chinese woman there took over, and I mean, he was smoking crack every day, and I almost want to ask Donald Trump, are you smoking crack, buddy? Because you're raising the tariffs on the Lay's chips there, bud. So we're going to do in retaliations, you're going to turn off all the electricity there for all the Americans, just like the Palestinians there, the Jews did there in the Gaza. So we're going to be doing that to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. So they're not even going to be getting any power. And yeah, buddy, we're just going to be hacking darts up here and having a couple beers, and y'all can go fuck yourself.
Okay, so of course that's not real. Good old Ben Bankus. If you've ever seen his impersonations of the Olivia Chow videos, I mean, now taking on Doug Ford, I think that's great. If Ben Bankus is ever in your town, you should go see him. Go check out Ben Bankus. Again, at the very least, follow him on social media. These videos are hilarious when he puts them out. Put a little laugh in everybody's step as we end this video, at least, to try and keep it positive. That hopefully something's going to give very quickly, that the tariffs are going to come to a close, that we're not going to see any further economic casualties, though we know that's not the case as this moves on. I guess, give me your thoughts down below. Do you think Doug Ford's doing this to set up his label company to make another profit? Or do you think that he's justified for what he's talking about doing? I know there's Canadians on both sides of the spectrum. But let me know what you guys think down below. Give me your thoughts. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you hit that button, you click your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, where we go over everything that's happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform, joined by my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe. We look forward to hearing what you guys have to say inside of those streams, outside of these videos, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.